went on the internet the other day and looked up somebody I haven't seen since I was about 10 years old. Somebody who I have remembered as one of the kindest, nicest people I'd ever known, and who moved away from Detroit and had over the years, on the few times that I've tried to find him, been almost impossible to locate. And then I found somebody who seemed to fit the description of this person, and I wrote them and I said, "Are you someone I went to school with in Detroit in the 1950s?" And they wrote me back and said yes. And I was sort of amazed. It was like the extraordinary thing of the internet. Those of you who are on Facebook probably have this all the time. I'm not on Facebook. But this search was really important to me because it somehow, it brought one of the things that was left unexplained and unknown from my childhood, suddenly now explained and known. And I wrote a letter to him and I said how my memory of him was of someone so exquisitely open, real, kind. And of course we were children, but I knew I'd never met anybody quite like him. And he had had a very hard story, and he seemed to have triumphed over that story. And reaching out to him, all I wanted was to hear how wonderfully everything turned out. And that was not the story. As hard as his early life was, it only got worse, and I mean worse like Dickens. Dickens without a happy ending. And he's unhappy at this point, bitter. And rightfully so. I mean, if anyone has a right to be bitter, based on the story of great suffering, and I'm not going to go into it all here because I think it's not fair to him. But all I wanted to do, and all I want to do, is reach out and sort of give him a hug across 50 decades of time. And I'm trying it via the internet, which is, you know, superficial. And I'm hoping at some point to get an opportunity to go see him. We've talked about it, but he's living on the other side of the world. But hearing the sad story and hearing how rightfully unhappy he is about that story makes me look at all of our stories. And I will tell you, his story is worse. And we all have sad stories. Everyone in this room has a sad story. Some sadder than others. And each one of us has the opportunity to make that sad story an excuse for our unhappiness, our victimization, our sense that we have earned our suffering. And the answer is true, you have. You have earned all the suffering you want. And you can carry more than you can possibly imagine. And if you think you've got the full load of it now, wait. It ain't over. It's, in a sense, you keep thinking there comes a point where the universe will break you open. And what's so astounding to me is the power of our will to not be broken, to bear this extraordinary sense of unhappiness. And you keep waiting. What's the last straw you can put on somebody before the back is broken? When is it that you can finally have them say, "Please help me. please help me. I can't take this. And, I think some people reach that, but it's surprising how many people don't reach that. How many people bear their suffering with pride, and a kind of ego pride that makes it very, very hard to experience salvation, if you will, or redemption, or transcendence. And I kept feeling how much I wanted to get on a plane and go see this old friend and just hug him and think that that might do it. But, I've been sitting here with a lot of you for 20 or more years, and it still hasn't done it. Lots of hugs, lots of embrace, lots of love, lots of attention, lots of being with you, and it takes more. It takes more, and it takes more, and it takes more. And I think what it finally takes, finally may be the wrong word, but what it really takes is you're willing to let go of your suffering, willing to let go of your sad story, not have it define you, not have it become the thing you carry with you every day into your life, because that sad story is something nobody wants to know. Really. Even if you want to tell it, you can go sit in every bar in America and try to tell it to somebody, and you'll have people going, what happens usually, you start telling your sad story, and then they come back with an even sadder story. So you get to share your burdens with each other, and and neither of you will feel satisfied, because everybody wants to have the saddest story and to outdo everybody else, where egos will work to the last second of possibility of, I am the worst and the hardest and the deepest and the most unhappy and the most whatever you think you are. So, how do you get out of that? Well, I think according to scripture, certainly Buddhist, Hindu scripture, you don't. Not for eons of time. You build it up. You create more and more unhappiness for yourself. The happiness of one lifetime gets transferred to the next one, and then it gets compounded and compounded. I don't know if that's true, and if it is true, I don't get it. I don't like it. I sort of get it. But somewhere that cycle has to stop, and one of the ways it stops is something in you really can't take the suffering anymore. And you start looking for an answer, and you, if you're lucky, stumble upon this idea of what we'll call meditation. Something about sitting still and not running from your suffering, or not extolling your suffering, but somehow deciding to sit still and get out of your suffering. I think that's what most people come to meditation for, or prayer, church, synagogue, help me out of my suffering. That's a very important start, because if you don't get to that point, nothing will take place. And then there's this strange journey of trying for years or decades to get out of your suffering. And what you get is these momentary releases. One of the joys of meditation is you start to discover the chakra system. And, Nityananda said, go into your heart chakra and roam. Which implies that this is not a static place. And you don't just go into it and go, wow. You go into here and you go, it's like waking up on a morning and the sky is blue and there's a huge vista in front of you, and you go, it's astounding what you discover in your heart chakra and in all of your chakras. They really are somewhere to enter into a portal of expansion and stillness. And it's so wonderful, and it's so liberating, and it's so delicious that you want it more than anything. And then you finish meditating. And you get back in the day, and all of the weight of the world returns. You keep coming back to the stuff. And slowly, maybe if you're lucky, the message dawns on you, you can't get out of it. Not by turning away from it anyway. Not from ignoring it, not from trying to find a place that will take you in and let you be free of everything that was. You can hope to find that oasis in yourself. But even if you do, you can't build a house there because it's not permanent. And what you finally begin to learn through meditation is you don't escape suffering, you accept it as part of the totality of your life. What happens when you accept suffering is that fighting suffering starts to dissipate. And what you understand at that moment is it's the fighting that causes the problem. The not wanting this thing to be there is what keeps it there. Allowing it to be releases you from the battle. It doesn't necessarily release you from the pain, but it releases you from fighting that pain. And it changes its character. And you start to feel, an interesting word, whole, or human. And you start to feel it not as a punishment, but as a blessing. It starts to make you extraordinarily sensitive to other human beings, extraordinarily compassionate for their life and their suffering. It begins to open you up to a channel of what we call love. Accepting your suffering makes you a better person. Accepting yourself allows you to become present with yourself. Being present with yourself means you're not fighting who you are. You're going, okay. You're sitting in the space of your being. You're sitting there. Being present is, in many ways, one of the true gifts of spiritual life. And I love that presence and present are so related. And the gift you give yourself of being present is that you become real with yourself and with others. And when you are with others, you become, well, we use the word really aware of them, acknowledging of them, accepting of them, loving of them. And that may be something most people haven't experienced very much. They may not know how to deal with it. But if you're completely real with people, you'll even acknowledge that. You'll say, I know how hard it is for you, but I truly love you. You may not want me to be always available to you, but I will always be available to you. My presence may cause you pain, but at some point we will work through that. Because it's interesting, presence is not always wanted. What I watch with most people who I'm present with, who are not aware of it, is how they try not to be present. And then, it's really interesting, if you really stay with people who want not to be present, you'll watch, their eyes are all over the place. You know, you're talking to them and they're thinking of the next thing they're going to say. They are never really there in the moment. But if you're truly present, there's a dance you can do that really allows you to find the eye movement of that person and join them. They go off in this place to distract themselves, you can go with them. You can do their dance, and you start to see them going, they don't know quite what you're doing, but you're engaging them in a way and acknowledging them in a way that makes them start to relax and feel okay with you. And then what happens is presence connects, and they don't know it as presence, they don't know it as you've just done something. All they know is they're feeling good again. They're feeling like, oh, we can talk. And the easiest, simplest thing goes on that most of us take for granted, but for many people it's so rare that you can't take it for granted. It's just suddenly being in a place of enormous, enormous connectivity. So when you're with people with really sad stories, and it can also when you're with yourself, with your own sad story, don't deny the story. Don't fight it. Don't put yourself down because you have it. Don't put them down because they're living it. Enter into it. Go, I know how hard it's been. I know the difficulty. I sympathize. I really care. Not because you know it as a person and want to own it. That's the danger point. I feel for your sadness. I really, really see what a hard time you've had. This breaks down all these barriers and allows you entry into connectivity and presence with another person. And when you have that, the true gift of human life, of the reason we're here to be with the other, is because we can begin to sense oneness. And that oneness is the ticket to, the doorway to truth. So when you truly are with another and you're not creating barriers, but are creating a really relaxed, open availability, the most wonderful thing that can happen in the world occurs, which is communion. And I tell you this because, tomorrow is Christmas, and if you want to see sad stories arrive, Christmas is the time. People have the saddest stories at this time of year, and they're usually about loss, and about regret, and about the thing they didn't have, and the thing they wish they have, and everybody trying to be happy and knowing that they don't know how, or only getting it for a few moments, or only getting it after 4 bourbons, or whatever it is. It's a time of sad stories. But it's also, we all know, it's a time of love and connection and family and embrace. And yet, the saddest part of sad stories is when you offer that to people at this time of year, it makes them more pained than ever. Your happiness is not a gift to other people at this time of year. We send out these Christmas cards every year. And I have this mixed feeling every time we do it, because I know there are some people who will enjoy it and be appreciative, and there are other people who go, those stupid damn Rubens, every year they send the same card, and why are they always having such a good time, and they must have terrible times too, and probably we should tell them that in the Christmas letter, but nobody really wants to hear your sad story in your Christmas letter, so we don't do that. But I get it. I really get it. I feel that, as much as we try to bring happiness to people or whatever, we're bringing as much unhappiness, and it just works like that. And the best thing you can do at this time of year is what I'm talking about. The true present of this time of year is giving your presence to another human being. Giving your presence. It's what people want. How you pull it off, it's not easy, because not everybody's available to it, not everybody's open to it. But in any way that you can, if you see an opening anywhere, someone who needs it, someone you can reach out to, someone who will be grateful for it, do it. Just allow people to know that you're there with them. You can tell them you love them. That sometimes creates pain as well, because they can't feel it back. You can sometimes give other gifts, but that's problematic too, because everybody goes, did I give the right gift, and now I can't give as good a gift, and all that horrible Christmas stuff. But what you can do, and what I know I look for during the holiday, is that coming together that happens sometimes just in brief moments, but sometimes, if you're lucky, for the entire event, where you're just with people, you love each other, you stop the drama, you stop trying to impress one another, you allow each other to be real, and you just bask in presence. That's the best version of the holidays. And it takes one person to be conscious enough to help make that happen. And one person can do it, and that person is you, of course, you. You can do it, because there's no one else who's going to do it automatically. Maybe there is in your life, but usually there's not. So take the job. Take it on. I will be present. Whatever that means, and it doesn't mean I'm going to force my presence on you, because that's not being present. Being present is a very relaxed, open, conscious, and available experience. And you each have the mechanism for that, otherwise you wouldn't be here. You each know how to do it. You just have to be willing to do it. And the great test of spiritual growth and development is exactly that. I always tell people, you can judge your spiritual life by how long you can be with your parents, assuming you still have parents around. 1 day is not so great, 2 days is pretty good, 3 days is heroic, 4 days is really, pretty much, like being in a state of total bliss and surrender and transcendence. 4 days with family is hard. But it's what we all need to learn to do, and it tests our muscle. It really tests our development. And use this time, use this holiday as an opportunity. Get stronger. Be the gift that you want to get. Be present. Any questions? Okay, see you Saturday.